The interesting thing about Britney Spears and the Mafia is that it is a very fascinating conspiracy that would be more broadly appealing to people who don't give a fuck about pop music or stigmatized mentally ill people. When you think about her case as a case within the broader human trafficking problem around the world, it makes a lot more sense. She is not an isolated case. She is just one that was like so audacious because of its prominence. But there's human trafficking all over people connected to Britney. You have prostitution ring, the Palms Casino, Pussycat Dolls. One of their ex-members has said that was a prostitution ring. Human trafficking, labor exploitation. They're a spectrum. Okay? So even Puff Daddy, who is oddly kind of like this elder statesman, but he was never cool. But he's very tied in with Lou Taylor. Anyway, so think about her case as just one of many forms of human trafficking, and it makes more sense. And how do these people make their money clean? Well, it's money laundering, and that infrastructure was started by the Mafia. Money laundering, as it's known now, was started by the Mafia. So they built, with great sophistication, the contemporary money laundering infrastructure, because it's Meyer Lansky, the accountant of the Mafia, that basically made Swiss bank accounts a thing. And he was involved in the birth of Las Vegas casinos and was besties with Lucky Luciano, who was head of the Genovese crime family. Now, he died in the early 80s in Florida. And as I've already stated, Florida is a hotbed of white-collar crime, you know? So it's interesting that both Larry and Lou come from Florida. I mean, clearly Arthur Anderson, and Larry is far more involved with Lou Pearlman than I can establish. So when we think of white-collar crime and how it functions now in this untouchable form, that whole infrastructure was started by the Mafia. And so you can't even say, if you think there's white-collar crime going on and money laundering from Lou Taylor with Britney's money, you can't even say it's not Mafia-related because they're using their system. As I've said previously, organized crime is highly tied to the vice industry because they have a racket on illegal things. So once prohibition was over, you know, when they said, oh, you know, alcohol's legal again, they had all these smuggling routes. So they, you know, switched to drugs and other things. You have to reframe how you think about how the Mafia worked with the U.S. government. They were given the role of protecting the New York Harbor during World War II from Nazis, right? Because it was like a fiefdom. It wasn't this federal state like we think of now. So the U.S. government has colluded with the Mafia. Then you have to think about how human trafficking is a common occurrence, and the people who benefit the most from it are not the ones who are targeted and stigmatized. Think of migrant workers. Oh, the illegals are here. Who's fucking hiring them? Okay? Oh, these prostitutes. Who's paying them? It's a routine practice. It's bait and switch. Blame the wrong people. Okay, so let's talk about the war in the Ukraine, okay? Putin always said he would, you know, go after Ukraine if they tried to join NATO. And that's exactly what he did, and he threatened that many, many years ago. Putin was in Berlin when the wall fell, and he was a KGB agent. He was just like shredding everything, and he said to himself, one day I am going to restore the Soviet Union to its former glory. And that's what he sees this war in Ukraine as, right? When George W. Bush invaded Iraq for the second time, he said on TV, "They tried to kill my dad." They got no, they didn't. They weren't even close, okay? So if you think in those frames of powerful people being like, I have this historical legacy that I'm going to return to its former greatness, that's exactly how people in Vegas felt. They wanted Vegas to be cool again. It was like a nothing burger for a really long time. I mean, Frank Sinatra used to be there. It used to be swinging good time, okay? So, financial crisis hits. Wow, now's the time. Let's move. Let's get this rolling again. So, if you think about it in the frame of they were always planning to bring Vegas back to its old glory. And look at it today. The Oakview Group is building a multi-billion-dollar development right now. And that's with Irving Azoff, okay? And don't get me started on Silver Lake and Azoff and Madison Square Garden and William Morris Endeavor, okay? Like, if you track the money, and as a layperson, I really can only see what I see, but then recognize patterns. Hollywood is a small town. It ain't this small. It ain't this small. And while everyone isn't bad, a lot of them are, who could silence the entire media? People act like they will be, if they speak about it, even today, like almost a year later. Isn't that wild? That is so wild because there's so much I still want to know. Like, was this like, I don't know. Even people in solitary confinement in maximum security prisons can get messages out easier than Britney could. Think about that. That is wild. And I mean, it's terrible injustice. I'm not flippant about it. I'm not joking whatsoever when I'm describing this injustice. It's called a coping mechanism. Humor. When we think about how her story was depicted and continues to be depicted, it is problematic. Okay? So even during her court hearing, what I do is I go on Twitter and I just refresh the keywords as they come up in the feed. And I will copy paste my message of the day under verified accounts, hoping that they will get views. Even on the day of her court case, they were bumping that Elton John Britney Spears story. Now, there's certain things I can't know if they're true or not. I would hope that story's true, but you have to think about when and where this story's coming out when you have these verified accounts being like, breaking news, duet, and it's like, but the breaking news is the law news, right? You even saw that with Lou Taylor, right? She had previously donated some money to Spelman College, a historically black female college in Atlanta. And then the day of Britney's testimony, they rebumped that story, okay? So you just have to be a little savvy and know, yes, there are infiltrators. It's clear. Okay, so I feel like I've been triggered ever since Framing Britney Spears came out. And I guess I have to give you my backstory a little bit. The 2000s were weird, y'all. Like, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have the rise of reality TV, paparazzi, social media starting, and it was a real sudden culture shift. And all these people, Bravo, E, TMZ, Us Weekly, it's like they are their own little circle. So it was really weird to be 25 in 2007 and go to anti-war protests for years, pro-choice protests, and almost no one was there. No one was there. It was like a media blackout. And then you'd look, See if the media covered the anti-war protests. They didn't. My dad was sent to Afghanistan, okay? So I was invested in it. And then 2007, I had a mental health breakdown. It was very embarrassing. I knew nobody. I knew nothing about mental health. And I really think of Britney as a peer, because who do we have? We had no positive representation at all whatsoever. So that stigma was hard to bear, really hard. Britney's story could have been told without using any paparazzi shots at all. You see that sea of photographers and them saying they could get paid $1 million a shot. Well, how many angles do we get? I feel like I see the same photos all the time. My conspiracy would be that people were just paid to harass her into staying in line and not becoming an independent person. I feel like it's a mixture, right, of opportunists, 49ers, and a coordinated effort to harass her for over a year before she was even conserved. You can't think of Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian, Britney as being very different because it's the same circles. Like, even though Paris came from money, she basically ran away from home because she was abused in these boarding schools. She was involved with some sketchy characters. And there's a lot of weird things that happened to her, like her stuff being stolen. It seems like drugs were planted on her. Her photo of her in a car accident launched TMZ. It is hard to know who is in on what and when they were and weren't in on things. So I don't mean to say Britney's case is like the rest of these 2000 stars. I'm saying it's the same circles. Like, okay, Joe Francis was besties with the Kardashians. He started Girls Gone Wild, which is kind of like the first reality TV-ish type of show with like Real World. Well, Real World Las Vegas was at the Palms Casino. And, the Maloofs championed themselves as the first casinos who invited in the paparazzi. I find it very feasible that they would tip off paparazzi that this or that was going to happen. I think there were a lot of setups beyond Britney's con. People set up for DUIs or whatever, or set up for photo ops, and they weren't all with people's consent, right? And that's the thing about blackmail. We've seen it. We've seen it with Trump and his dating of a porn star, Catch and Kill, the National Enquirer. And so it's not hard to think that this is a very standard practice across Hollywood. And it's also used to sabotage people if they don't play the game. So when I say Britney was involved with the Mafia, it's pretty clear that she was. Why would they immediately, May 2008, after she gets conserved, one of her first excursions out and the paparazzi is there is with George Maloof. And there's already rumors of a Vegas residency. Rumors of a Vegas residency also happened in January 2013 when she was signed with Rob Light and Jeffrey Azoff at CAA. It's a pattern. And it's very interesting because the Maloofs, yes, they had the Palms Casino, but it tanked because of the financial crisis in 2008. Interestingly, Caesars was purchased in 2008, right, at a bargain price. And so it would take a while to set all that up, right? It's pretty clear that they were setting up Vegas well in advance, even if they didn't have a concrete plan from the jump. Why would Caesars also be owned by the same people who also own CAA? Okay, why are the Maloofs not in the news? They should be in the news. They should totally be in the news. How is that not captivating to the audience, right? Everyone, it makes no sense. I don't know who let Jamie Spears do an interview with a Las Vegas newspaper in 2014, but he's the one who said that the Maloofs sent him to chef school, and he has known them since 2001 when the Palms Casino opened, and that they had already been good friends with Larry Rudolph for a while, particularly George. George was locker mates with Suge Knight when they played for the University of Nevada football in the 80s, okay? Gangster shit, okay? So, why aren't they in the news? I do not know. And sometimes you have to wonder, like, what do they have on these people? Like, nobody? Nobody, right? And the whole reason I think I bring this up is because of the sale of the Palms in 2011 was to the same people who bought Caesars and CAA. Okay? So there's some kind of handoff going there. Because May 2011, they're like, we would love Britney to do a Vegas residency. Then they sell the Palms. And then there's this whole thing with moving the Sacramento Kings, Governor Jerry Brown, legislature demanding they repay debts. It's fucking weird. Everyone's always saying Rico Rico, Jamie Spears, Robin Greenhill, Jamie Spears. But it's so many more people than that. And we don't know where it stops and starts until people start talking. But business deals were made because Britney was promised to Vegas. It's so clear. So clear from all my research. And I cannot let it go, even though I should, because it's like, I cannot talk about it with anyone in my family because it drives so crazy. Oh, gosh. But I don't want it to be another Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein or, even what's coming out now about Hugh Hefner. These people run human trafficking rings. Maybe a person or two goes to prison, but it doesn't uproot the infrastructure, right? You cut off the head, someone else is providing those services. That's terrifying, given how high profile this is. And that's why I go back to, like, what is keeping people from talking? Or asking the right questions. I mean, why doesn't the news just state facts? Just facts, Like, Jamie Spears wasn't just this unemployed alcoholic gambling addict.